Welcome to the Brilliant Humans podcast, where we celebrate extraordinary people. But here's the catch. No one here is talking about themselves. Every guest is here to share the story of a brilliant human who helped shape them, inspire them, or change their life forever. They might be famous or completely unknown, alive or no longer with us, a teacher, a parent, a stranger, a leader, a friend. These are real stories, honestly told. Stories of kindness, creativity, courage and connection, because brilliance deserves to be shared. This is the Brilliant Humans podcast. Today on the Brilliant Humans podcast, I am joined by Andrew Tilling, a professor of capoeira, a triathlete and an undercover introvert. In his role as founder and CEO of the Hive Change Consultancy, Andrew's helped thousands of brilliant humans using his skills from the creative arts, global business and deep commitment to personal growth. Andrew's here to share his story of not one, but two brilliant humans who have shaped his life. And I can't wait to learn more. So hello, Andrew.
Hello, John. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really quite excited about this because it's a story I've been really trying to piece together in my head to figure out, how best to communicate just how brilliant these two people are. So thank you so much for giving me the platform to be able to share it.
Well, you're very welcome. I mentioned at the start you're a professor, and I had tried to say that correctly, but can you explain what that is for people that don't know? Well, they might not even know what capoeira is.
It's the grade that I really wanted to get in capoeira because it meant that I could put professor on my LinkedIn profile and just people would think I'm a professor. So that's great. I could sell some books from that. But no, it's capoeira is a Brazilian martial art. It's something I've been doing with my wife for 20 years now. We trained at the London School of Capoeira. Since then, we've been invited to set up our own school, which we've done. And my wife, Caterina, she's a contramestre, which is one off mestre. And I'm a professor, which is one off that. So, yeah, we're a couple of belts away from bumping our heads on the ceiling. Yeah.
Okay, so she's nearly there. She's nearly at the very heart. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've been chasing that woman for a very long time. I just, when you beat, you beat. I think that's one thing that capoeira taught me probably over the years.
So, I mean, definitely in capoeira, you are punching above your weight.
That's kicking. Certainly kicking.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
There's less punching in capoeira.
Well, look, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, I really wanted to start this podcast because I just want to share positive human stories. I think there are so many amazing people in the world. And unfortunately, we live in a time where maybe the algorithms aren't, programmed to show that. It's all a bit doom and gloom. It's fear mongering. And I thought, you know what? Let's share the stories, the real stories from real people about brilliant humans who have changed their life. So thank you so much for coming on.
May I say as well, I love it that it's about other people because so much that I've found, particularly on LinkedIn or other things, it's about, it's the humble brag. It's trying to put your own story out there or shout out about it, to actually just wax lyrical about people you really care about and you really admire, I think is just a fabulous format.
Thank you. I hope other people feel the same. So, I mean, let's just jump straight in, shall we? I don't know who you're here to talk about. So tell me who, you said it's two people. So who are your brilliant humans?
Well, I went backwards and forwards over these two when I thought about, applying to come on the podcast. And it's my mum and dad. Now, I know a lot of people want to say, my mum and dad, they're definitely brilliant humans and they definitely have helped shape my life. But my mum and dad are, I think, a little bit different. And I really want to kind of share that story. And I don't know really where's best to begin, really, where they are now or kind of where they were.
I think, because, my next question, if it was a single brilliant human, it was going to be, how did they first come into your life? But I think we all kind of know that. I mean, maybe not actually in some cases. But okay, let me rephrase that then. When did you first realise they were brilliant? That might help go back a bit and explain the story.
Sure. So I think probably in primary school, where my mum and dad were involved in everything. It was like they raised money for a new school bus. We lived on an island just out of the River Midway called the Isle of Sheppey, and they raised funds for a double-decker bus that they got and drove around the island to pick up all the kids and take them into school, right? And they were on the school governors, and then they were putting on shows. We did Oliver, and my mum was Nancy, my dad was Bill Sykes, the headmaster was Fagin. It was that kind of environment, you know, and I'm sitting there like, 6 years old, just going, where are all the other mums and dads, you know? But it was just them up front and centre, and that seemed to be constantly the case. There was always another fundraiser. My dad was doing canoe trips from the one end of the Thames to the other, organising marathon runs without any training, just kind of outrageous stuff to just kind of put himself out there, but raise some cash for something, whether it's redoing the church hall or getting the bus together or whatever else it may be. So I think right from the start, I could see that they were really putting themselves out there and very community focused. And my mum ran a little play group, and I was expected to be the host when I was like 4. I was kind of trying to host kids and get them all sorted. So there was this kind of constant sense of community always moving around us. But that kind of evolved, and it stepped up. When we left the island, my dad was in the police, so we kind of moved around really wherever drugs were coming into the country. But we ended up in Folkestone for a while. And there my mum set up a theatre school, and my dad's charity projects got bigger and bigger. He was doing a cross holiday. So basically this was kind of like you take, it was terminally ill children that he would organise with police and nurses to take them to somewhere on a final holiday. So that was involved very much with the church, and my mum was doing lots of fundraising around that as well. So the show started ramping up, and my mum ended up opening a theatre school, which was great. But then, Romania broke. Now, the news, I don't know if you remember, but it was like back in 1989,
what year are we
1990.
talking?
Yes.
Okay.
I was 15 at the time. Ceausescu's regime fell, and what they discovered that there were all these orphanages kind of tucked away with these kids who were deemed irrecoverable. So it was like, there's nothing we can do about them, so we're going to stick them in an orphanage. They can't be changed or salvaged to be able to contribute to society, so we kind of tuck them away, basically. And they were given, zero care. It was bottles of maize, watered down. They lived in cots. So you had 8-year-old kids who looked like 3-year-olds. It was very shocking. It was very profound. And my dad just went, I've got to do something. So he organised a van full of aid out to Romania. Great. Do that. He had a horrible time. Broke his heart. He working with these kids and trying to give them some love and care and demonstrate how to give love and care and what the impact that can make to these kids' lives. And he came back and swore he'd never go back. Well, a few months later, he took 100 vehicles filled with aid, organised the largest peacetime convoy ever to leave the UK, with the whole family involved. I was working on the database, trying to get it all sorted, and we were doing lots of collections of aid and trying to mobilise everybody as much as we could. We put on Oliver again because, hey, it's orphans, so I was playing Bill Sykes in that. My brother was on the lights, and it was all kind of scaling up. And my parents took the decision to bring in 2 children from Romania to our house for, I think it was 2 months, where we organised medical care for them. That Florentina had trouble with her eyesight. There was developmental issues with Claudia, and we had these 2 Romanian orphans living in our house and being part of our family for this time, which was a profound experience that you don't realise is a profound experience, but has a real impact. And of course, by this point, people stopped saying, hey, we saw your family in the paper this week. It was like, actually, we didn't see you in the paper this week. What's going on? Have you guys got something on? It was like, because we were just in it all the time. This isn't to mention the fact that we had kids going up into the West End. My mum's theatre school become so strong and so bold. Really, she was, I say second to none. There was Barbara Speake and Sylvia Young were the big ones at the time, who probably had more kids in the West End than anybody. But I think probably my mum was number 3. She was a factory for turning kids who were bouncing off the walls, literally bouncing off the walls when they came in. 6 months later, they're playing Oliver in the West End, having this profound effect on these kids.
And I think, look, this is just all mind blowing. And I do remember the Romanian thing being on TV. I remember that as quite an early memory. And there was a newsreader, I cannot remember his name, but there was a newsreader who went over there and he rescued a child. Do you remember that? And he sort of smuggled her back, and then ended up adopting her. But so I remember that very clearly. But just described there, I mean, of course these people are brilliant humans, but was there ever a moment where was it just all normalized to you? I know I sort of said, when did you realize they were brilliant? But surely if you're living in that kind of celebrity family world that are taking biggest peacetime convoys to Romania, have a massive stage school, in the community, surely that just felt normal to you, didn't it?
It did, but as I got older, I realized that that came with a degree of responsibility, but also a degree of pressure. That it's like having to live up to that all the time when you're just a teenager who's spotty and trying to deal with hormones and stuff. So, I mean, that I wouldn't say there was a resentment there, but it was a constant thing. But when your dad comes back and shows you 4 hours of video footage from these Romanian orphanages, and you sit around as a family just try and understand what he's doing, you do go, no, this isn't normal. This is very unusual. And I think that profound respect for both my parents kind of grew with these stark reminders that this was something very special that we were doing. And it was a tremendous sacrifice on the part of my mother as well, who would say goodbye to my father to go off and do his thing, but it had to keep the whole family going and the business, the theatre school, and get us all through school and all the rest of it. So that was, yeah, I think, we recognized we had to pull together as a family to make it happen. But then there came a time when we just couldn't pull together as a family anymore. Because when I was 16, my brother John was very sadly killed in a motorbike accident, which just rocked not only our world, but the whole community's world, because suddenly front page news of the local rag was "Goodbye John Boy," and 3-page spread, yeah, because they'd run the whole campaign on Campaign Convoy. It was their, we were their like poster child, as it were, poster family. Shepway's best loved family loses son. It was a big moment. And the community rallied together, and huge funeral, but the cracks really began to show. And I think what was particularly hard, just to slip it in there, was that my father had also been ordained a Catholic deacon. Now he was a boxing police atheist when he was 16, but my mum's pretty persuasive, and so he eventually became this Catholic, and then was ordained.
So by this stage, he'd left the police, had he?
He was actually the first Reverend PC. And he went back into uniform to do both. So he was Reverend PCE in Tilling for a while, which got him a couple of slots on TV, but just for the anomaly of it all. But he eventually he had to retire after after losing John, or around that time, and yeah, everything began to unravel, and it got to the point where my parents split up. They couldn't hold it together, and my dad decided to focus fully on Romania. My mum decided to focus fully on her theatre school, and we tried to focus on, I guess, growing up, being our family, but we couldn't do that as a family anymore, and I found it very difficult. I moved out very quickly. My sister, my brother got out as quickly as he could. He started working in London. My little brother, having grown up with all these theatres and lights and technical shows, he went off on a stellar career in tech. I think we had a few wilderness years while we all tried to figure stuff out. My dad's project in Romania, we ended up building an orphanage in the middle of a slum that turned into a daycare center and support center and tech center that lasted a good, I think, 7 years before it just crumbled. The community around it just couldn't make it work. But he was offered a building in the center of Bucharest and asked to open up a night shelter to support homeless people there. Because my mum, went from just project to project to project, but was hit with an extraordinary few waves of very bad luck with the sponsor for the theatre that we'd been living and working in for some time, pulled out just as we, signed a new lease. So that put a lot of financial strain on the family. Yeah, she ended up starting a band with a lot of kids who would, were all very active and very engaged. That they ended up GB6 playing Glastonbury, did an arena tour, just started getting quite big. And then September 11th, 2001, the backer for that band's office got destroyed in the World Trade Center, and so that whole deal fell apart, and it was kind of again back to square one. And so she had all these kind of waves, but I tell you, consistently, whenever I go back into Folkestone and speak to people, the number of people who say that basically my mum raised them, it was a second parent, got them through all the difficult times. And this was all through this time when I was, in my wilderness years out, doing my own thing, getting on my own career going, thinking that so much was lost. She was quietly shaping the lives of children all over Folkestone, and you see them now, and they're talking about the impact they've had on the way that they bring up their children. She's had on that, but then she had another round when she came back kind of out of retirement and started working with the kids of these kids, and again having this on a much smaller scale, but this profound impact on people's well-being. So. And I think the way that they've both approached that in my adult life has been, I think, where the real impact has come, and I think where the legacy of their work has really begun to take shape.
Have they been recognised by society? Have they received any awards or accolades or anything like that for their work?
Well, my dad recently, last year, received his OBE, which was
okay,
a wonderful thing. We never know who's nominated him, as it were, but one of his big backers is the British Embassy in Bucharest, and I was recently invited to attend the 30 years celebration of Casa Ioana in the British ambassador's residence in Bucharest. So that was quite a stately affair, and to see that level of support is quite profound. My mother, less so. She's one who likes to big up other people.
And you've mentioned your dad's name. You said that Ian, but I don't think you've mentioned your mother's name.
No, I haven't. So Ian Tilling is my father, and Cecilia-Wells Tilling is my mum.
You're listening to the Brilliant Humans podcast, where, here's the catch, no one talks about themselves, only the brilliant human who changed their life. If you've got someone you'd like to celebrate, drop us a note at brillianthumanspodcast@gmail.com. And do you think, because by the sounds of the story, they were on these paths anyway, do you think that John's death just accelerated that even more for both of them? Or do you think they'd always have ended up doing what they did, but just maybe on a different timeline?
I think what has shifted was the focus. It was, and I'm going to say not necessarily a healthy one, but it was I'm going to escape from the tragedy by going into this world fully, which both of them managed to keep going for a number of years before both projects took a hit, took a break, and there had to be a big reset. And I think that both of them came out of that reset with a stronger sense of wisdom, I think, to find a way to move forward. For my mum, it was more, it's going to make a positive impact, and I'm going to go and see how I can help. It was the community focus became the focus, I feel like, once again. And my father, I think the big step back made him look and think about what was needed now. what's the impact that he could make now? I think that seeing him go and approach that project, he was invited by, I think it was the mayor of Bucharest, to try and solve this issue, go and make some kind of contribution to the homeless issue in Bucharest. And it was kind of like, well, I don't know anything about running a night shelter. Where do I even begin with that? But he did know who knew something about homelessness and night shelters, and that was people who were homeless and used night shelters. So he went around with a Romanian interpreter and interviewed people on the streets of Bucharest to try to understand what their needs were. And he's got this kind of approach. I think it comes from the detective in him, where he's a problem solver. Once he's got a problem, he's constantly chewing it over, and this kind of interviewing people and trying to understand what their needs are and understanding what the bureaucracy issues were in Bucharest, which by this point he was experienced in. He was the first NGO in Romania, foreign NGO, to get a charitable registration, and he did it without paying a single backhander, which you'd think would be normal. It's not. And so, having that resilience and the determination to do things right, but it's about finding that way. He tells a wonderful story about how trying to get into Romania with a van full of aid, they wanted to, they check his papers, and his papers didn't have a rubber stamp on it. And in Romania, everything has a rubber stamp. He was being turned away at the border. So he went back a bit for, a couple of miles, waited a while. They had some dinner, thinking about the shift change. And he took a 10-pence piece and just got that, covered it in ink, and then flipped it onto the, pressed it down onto the piece of paper, and then showed it to the next set of guards, who all they saw was the Queen's head on the stamp. That's official, and waved him through. I mean, you find a way.
Yeah.
But the thing is, once he does it, he's got this thing. He just goes, cracked it. Yes, and that cracked it, I think, has resonated as like key moments throughout my life. It's like, cracked it. And he'd tell the story about how he cracked it, and understanding that, you can take on stuff that's bigger than you.
So if your dad's motivation was to cracked it, what was your mum's version of that?
Well, for her, it was, she had 5 rules at Imagination Theatre School. And I remember what life was like before those rules. It was just crazy. Kids turn up, we run around, we run wild. She'd sometimes be shouting, sometimes be laughing. It was just, you just try and make stuff work. But then suddenly the rules came and everything shifted. And the rules were self-discipline, self-control, good behavior, good manners, hard work. And that gives you success in the palm of your hand. Still remember it, word for word, right? Self-control. I'm not going to sit here and control you. I'm not here to force you to do stuff that you don't want to do. You want to be here, you control yourself. You manage your own time. This is what you need to do. Self-control, self-discipline. You're not going to get anywhere or achieve what it is that you want to do if you can't put yourself right when you stop doing well. You've got to sit back. You've got to reflect on that. You've got to figure it out, and you've got to move forward. Self-discipline. Good behavior. You're not going to be part of a professional company unless you can behave well. This is the space where you can learn how to do that. Learn how to behave well. Figure it out, because you've got to be part of a company for a long period of time. And if you want to invite them back, it's a very small world, right? You're not going to get another role if you mess it up first time around. Good manners. Be respectful. It's amazing how well people remember you when you're the kid who comes in with those good manners. And the first time you meet people, you make that good impression, and you keep that up as you work on through. It's part of that professionalism. And hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? So do the work. And it just became a culture. It was a set of principles that became a hallmark of what it was to be one part of Imagination Theatre School, but to a professional.
If your dad was I've cracked it, and he got loads of pride in getting around those challenges and cracking through, was your mum's "I've cracked" then? Was it about seeing, was that her version of that?
You've cracked it. You've done it. Look what you've achieved.
Yes. Yeah,
It
yeah.
was, but I've still got friends who they have an event, something goes well, and they'll be talking about it, and I'll say, "Have you told my mum?" And they'll be like, "No," and I say, "Go and tell my mum." And she gets to get on the phone with them, and then they'll say, and you just hear it, "Oh, darling, that's wonderful. Oh, well done, you. Well done. Congratulations. You must be so." And she just gives you this gush of positive reinforcement. It's the hit because she gets the work that you've put in to achieve what it is that you've achieved. She may not understand what it is that you've achieved, but she understands the work that must have gone into it in order to make the breakthrough. And that's what she positively reinforces in people is that determination and that grit. And it's a grit that she's applied to everything that she has ever done. She's a dog with a bone. She will just work it, work it, work it, work it, work it, work it, work it until it cannot be worked anymore. And then she'll go and find another,
But it sounds like they're both dogs with bones, but with different motivations and different, outcomes. So, I mean, it sounds incredible. But when you have two parents like that, then thinking about them as the brilliant humans they are, what's the biggest impact they've had on you collectively?
I think there's there's a kind of a negative sense and a positive sense here, because I mean, when I was young, I mentioned it before, that sense of pressure that I needed to be the good boy. I was part of this family. We show up. We're well behaved. We do as uh, we
It was the five
show.
rules. It was the
Yeah,
five rules.
yeah, it was. But I think it was a different angle. That was very. That was kind of like, this is what you're trying to achieve to do what you need to do, whereas this is what it was for us all to kind of keep that family presence in the community. So
We
there
are
was
the
very much that
Tillings,
element, yeah, right.
and you
And
will
there'd be
be a
chaos
Tilling.
in the car. I mean, there is so much neurodiversity in my family. It's ridiculous, and that needed some kind of outlet before we then probably put on the masks again. So the car was kind of crazy, and then it'd be like, right, now we're going in, and we would go on in, and it would be, best behavior. So there was that pressure there, and I think that probably took me into my late 20s before I really let go of that. But the positive influence on that was I am hardwired for positive impact. It gives me a thrill. It is my absolute North Star. It is my sense of inspiration. And that may play out in different ways, but I think it's given me the courage to kind of say, yeah, that's nice, but how can it make more impact? What can I do differently to ensure that helps more people? And that, I think, has probably steered my own career development more than anything else. Is that it's like, is there a better way to do this, or is there a way not more efficient, not more profitable? That's there, and it's part of it because that helps you make a bigger impact. But it's about driving that positive impact, and that's a deep value and personal sense of inspiration for me. That is absolutely comes from not what I've been kind of conditioned with, but just what I've observed, the profound impact of influencing somebody's life,
Yeah.
and what comes back to you from that. I just getting phone calls from years later just saying, remember that thing, and you think, really? And it's like, yeah, that had a huge impact. And you remember at the time that person, that thing, that project was the most important thing for you right there and then. It was that moment, was helping that person in the very best possible way. That comes from my parents. That comes from that that determination to not only crack the problem, but ensure that they, look what you've done. Enable that person to achieve it.
And this is the whole purpose of this podcast, because we've all got these brilliant people throughout our lives that have done things for us, big, small, monumental, and quite often we don't get a chance to sort of turn around and say thank you or tell them what an impact they've had. So I think that's what this is all about. I'm conscious of time. I mean, this has just been incredible. We could talk for hours about your brilliant humans. But my final question: what would you like to say to your mum and dad uh, about being brilliant?
Well, one, thank you for giving me the chance just to share their story because I think it's so important to do that. But this year they're both 75. So it's a big happy 75th birthday, both to you, Mum, Cecilia, and Dad, Ian. Thank you for modeling what it takes to be a brilliant human. I want you both to know that your influence goes far beyond family, Mum shaping half of Folkestone's kids and Dad reshaping psychosocial care in Romania. The impact is there, but it's also the influence that you've had on everyone that you've worked with and how they've decided to treat other people moving forward and inspired other people to make a difference too. Know that that influence is there. So there's the deep gratitude for not only being brilliant, but for being deeply human as you've gone through that and having the courage to share that humanity with us as kids, because that's helped us figure out the humans that we want to be. And that's the legacy that we want to carry forward for you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that story. Yeah, that was just amazing. And I feel very inspired, and I'm gonna be thinking about this for a long, long time. So yeah, I really appreciate you bringing them both to this, Andrew. So thank you so much. How was it for you?
It's wonderful. I mean, just thinking through the story, I sat with this for quite some time before I came on here, just trying to figure out what happened along the way. I think, what matters, I think, most to me is that people don't just hear their story and think, well, those are two outliers kind of doing their crazy thing. I think if there's one thing I wish I made clearer, it's that all they were doing was trying to influence their world that was right in front of them. It's just their worlds became bigger, But I think if you could learn anything from my mum and dad's stories, look at the world that you're in, the community that you're in, and just try to figure out how to make that bit better. It's like, my mum, every time we walked into a church hall to do another drama class, it would be like, great, let's go and wreck it, but we leave it better than how we found it. And that's what my parents have done in every environment they've ever walked in. They've always left it better than they found it. And if that's all we ever did as humans, what a world would have.
Well, there you go. I think that is the perfect place to stop. So thank you so much, Andrew. I'm really excited to share this with the world. And once again, I think I think you do, but I can tell you are so lucky to have the mum and dad that you do. And sometimes it's all easy for us all to forget that. But yeah, what a wonderful story. So thank you so much
And I
for
wish
coming on.
huge success to Brilliant Humans podcast. I think it's a fantastic thing. And I just hope that many, many stories come out. I can't wait to listen to them all. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Speak to you soon. Thank you for listening to the Brilliant Humans podcast. If you've got a brilliant human you'd like to celebrate, email us at brillianthumanspodcast@gmail.com to find out how to share their story. Or if there's someone you'd simply like to thank, why not tell them right now? It might just make their day. See you next time.